So then, Rocket whispered to Howard, "Shh, I hear someone outside." Who could that be, wondered Howard. And that's when he realized, of course, it's Hit Monkey. Hit Monkey would surely kill them both if he found out about the raw, passionate love between Rocket and Howard.
Stop suppressing.
Meanwhile, Man-Thing and Groot went to the hospital to check on their baby.
Stop suppressing.
Goodbot? Check the perimeter for any intruders. Specifically ones with a skull mask.
My sensors are not picking up such interloper.
Then why am I hearing the antagonist's voice?
Well, I don't hear anything.
Neither do I.
Get it together, Goodplot. You're not going insane. No, you're not. Ooh, I know the remedy. YouTube videos. Yes, good old-fashioned YouTube videos. Ah!
Stop suppressing.
Suppressing what? Be specific!
Your supervillain instinct. I was wrong about you. You do have it. But if you keep it bottled up, you'll explode.
Literally?
No, but it'll be just as gruesome.
Ah! Get out of my head! Gobbledygook. I've been a high-quality villain this whole time. If not, why would I still have henchmen?
We're more like your roommates at this point, really.
You're not helping.
Perhaps your subconscious is telling you something.
What? That I'm becoming more of a geek and less of a villain? It's supposed to be both. It's not one over the other.
What if it's because your research material is not adequate for proper villain training?
That could be the case. Let's look back on the list.
First, there was Toy Story.
Yes, from those I learned how to be the enemy of toys. If they are sentient, and they're not, so that might have been pointless.
Don't tell him.
Next, there was Rocky.
Oh yeah, that was the lesson on how to be a villain in the athletic world. But, as you can see by my physique, that's not exactly useful. Next one.
The third one was Pirates.
Bingo! We finally found a useful one. That was the one on how to discover the supernatural secrets of the world and use it for our advantage, such as talking to gods. This must be why my subconscious is taking the form of antagonist, so I can follow what he did. But I need to keep in mind that this might have led to his downfall, which is why he quit this whole operation.
So, we're just gonna skip Shrek?
Yes, we're skipping Shrek.
Well, for more on challenging a higher power, I defer to Indiana Jones.
Then so be it.
This franchise is known for being a love letter to classic serials of the World War II era. So of course these movies are the most famous for using Nazis as the villains. But that should not be the main takeaway. only half of the quadrilogy actually contains Nazis. It was never the link between all the villains. The link was their desire to uncover supernatural forces, each for different reasons. Today's forecast calls for a 90% chance of major spoilers, and then a 75% chance of minor spoilers, all throughout the weekend. Back to you, GP! We start with Raiders of the Lost Ark, and right from the get-go, we see how treasure hunting is a game filled with betrayal. Both of Indy's companions double-cross him at separate occasions, but both immediately get their comeuppance. Not to mention a third party had perished before the fact. He's described as one of Indy's rival archaeologists, but the relief of no longer having to deal with him is immediately halted by the harsh reminder of another rival, René Emile Belloc. Their rivalry used to be healthy competition, but now it's a clash of morals between these two. Indy hunts for treasure fair and square, but Belloc is willing to lie and barter his way to the prize. I would have preferred if Belloc did not explain to the audience that he's the evil doppelganger of Jones. Let us figure that out. One of the various motives of the Third Reich was to attain a be-all, end-all weapon that ended World War II. But according to this movie's universe, it was straight from the Bible. So naturally, he lunges at the opportunity of working for what he assumed was the winning side of the war. Not only is Belloc the Nazis' go-to navigator, but he's also an expert on how Jones ticks. When the Nazis attain the Ark of the Covenant, Indy threatens to destroy it, but Belloc calls his bluff, knowing that Indy would never harm such a sacred piece of history. But Belloc is just 1/3 of this film's villainous triad.
Does this mean the return of the trifecta technique?
No, I thought about bringing that back, but I'm afraid it'll fall apart like last time.
Belloc would only be trusted with such a project if he had the proper supervision. That's where Commander Herman Dittrich comes in, and that's really the only purpose he serves here: to display all the traits of Nazis, such as their apprehension of Jewish rituals, despite its use of activating their doomsday weapon, which, by the way, proves that the Jewish religion is right. But the final member of this triad is by far the most memorable. Major Arnold Todt is a Gestapo agent, meaning he's there on behalf of the Secret Agent Division, as opposed to the military division that we see all over the place, and has more personality in his amulet-branded hand than the other two villains have in their whole bodies. If you ever ran into a guy like this, I mean a sweaty creep, you would be extremely uncomfortable to be in the same room as him. But that's what you need in a villain like this. The villain doesn't have to always be charismatic. That's what Belloc is for. Todt is constantly revealing things about him by barely saying a word. He appears anxious at every turn, and his skittish behavior is shown through the brief chuckles between each sentence. And another way he lets out his anxiousness is by laughing at Belloc's mistakes. He's so devoted to maintaining his intimidating image that he puts extra care in hanging his coat, avoiding the wrinkles. He also keeps it on in the scorching desert sun. You would think this scene would have happened earlier. Speaking of which, we've come to the inevitable fate of this triad, when they open the Ark. All of the lower henchmen just get ethereal tentacles stabbed through them, but the Trinity is treated to a much more extravagant death. The commander's face withers and implodes, Belloc's face catches fire and explodes, but the most extravagant death is saved for Tote. His melting face has gone down in history as one of the most iconic movie deaths. But I feel his legacy should not be limited to just that. Then again, I have seen a recent minor villain that seems to be reminiscent of Tote. It's just a matter of whether or not they'll go all the way with that character and have his face melt off.
Now, before we continue on this subject, we should explain that we are not, nor have we ever been associated with Nazis or any other hate group.
Why does that need clarification?
Have you been living under a rock?
Oh, you're right. And this accent isn't helping. It's gonna hurt my chances of being the most beloved villain on the internet. Look at the competition.
We move forward to Temple of Doom. Or do we? Yes, this is actually a prequel. Possibly because Indiana has had so many separate adventures that it never matters what order they're told in. But it may have also been to take a break from the Nazis and explore other types of villains running around in the 1930s, such as gangsters. Though I wouldn't have mind if they were the main villains, instead of just for the cold opening. Lao Che is a Chinese crime lord who demands a sacred item from Indy in return for a diamond, but keeps both and poisons Indy. Regardless of what order these are told in, Jones should learn that these bamboozles will just keep happening. So when Indy gets the cure and escapes via airplane, the crime lord isn't too disappointed, 'cause the pilots work for him. They leave Indy to crash land in the Indian jungles, where the new obligatory MacGuffin needs to be sent back to its village. Not one, but 3 MacGuffins this time. The Sankara Stones are intended to bring fortune to whoever owns them, while an underground cult sees them as a chance to summon a world-ending deity. The scariest part of this barbaric cult is how they disguise themselves as a civil society that welcomes all visitors. After Indy questions their intentions, their prime minister does the same back at Indy. Qatar Lao puts Indy's whole morality into question, pointing out how archaeology may technically be trespassing and stealing. So it's a bit disappointing that the cult mastermind is not him. It would have added to his ironic hypocrisy. Instead, he's merely a henchman who didn't even get an elaborate death. He's just knocked out unconscious and never seen again. So who's the real leader? Well, it's not the Boy King, that's for sure. I know child leaders were a real thing, But I've had it with these ankle biters and their authority over full-grown adults. Shouldn't it be ridiculously easy to overthrow these tykes? Just pick them up and throw them. Prince Zalim pretends to be an innocent, shy, timid boy, when in reality he's a relentless voodoo doll stabbing twerp. Or so we thought. It turns out he was brainwashed the whole time, and he actually was a goody two-shoes. I suspect the writers made this double twist so nothing bad could happen to him. Even the R-rated Tropic Thunder kept its villainous children alive. Whatever happened to the gruesome death awaiting all villains, even the children? It's about equal opportunity.
You're just jealous because they've done more in their short lives than you've ever done in your 24 years of existence. Never mind.
Okay, let's stop beating around the bush. The real mastermind was Mola Ram, but he came out of nowhere. Wouldn't it be more of a shock if he was set up as one of the representatives posing as civilized? Well, at least in the climax, he shows that he's not all incantations and human sacrifices. He has a wit to him. When Indy threatens to drop the 3 stones down the gorge, Mola uses reason and knows the stones can easily be retrieved while Indy would be dead. This leaves Indy no choice but to take everyone down. So out of all the main villains, it's the supernatural high priest who gets the least supernatural death, being torn apart by crocodiles. Although, I don't trust those jump cuts. Now we actually move forward to the Last Crusade. Here, the opening villains are from way, way back, predating the whole trilogy. The first villains that Indy ever faced were Fedora Garth and his band of scoundrels. But unlike the previous opening villain encounters, this impacted Jones in a positive way. Garth acknowledged how passionate and resilient Jones was, but still taught him that he can't win every fight. But he does give Jones a consolation prize. Keeping that hat shows that in order to survive in a world of scoundrels, you may have to pick up a few of their traits. So was it really necessary to go back even further with his origin?
Don't you dog on a television classic!
Really? You think the show is that good?
I don't know. I never saw it.
Well, I do give it credit for showing us what Indy was like in other areas, including the present of 1993. Wait a minute. He better get that in the 5th movie. Represent.
So after the intro, we are back in the 1930s, where Indy finally reunites with both the Cross and the man who employed Garth, Panama Hat, but mysteriously without Garth. Maybe it was to show that Indy was done idolizing him and has become his own hero. But there was always that regret of losing the cross, which he finally has closure for when Panama goes down in flames and water. But as one obsession closes, another opens back up when Indy is hired by businessman Walter Donovan, whose years of investigating and string pulling has gotten him tantalizingly close to the key of eternal life. No, not that one. We covered that 2 episodes ago.
Wait a minute. That was a year ago? Oh no. Oh no! That's alright. Spawn year took like 2 years.
I don't think 365 episodes compare to just 6. That's not going to win every argument.
Behold, the Holy Grail of ancient artifacts, the Holy Grail! With the assigned help of fellow archaeologist Elsa Snyder, Indy clashes with a clan of thugs wearing fezzes who appear to be the villains of the film, but it turns out that everything is topsy-turvy. It's the Fez guys who are actually the allies. They're willing to die to protect the Grail. So that leaves Walter and Elsa as the real villains, because they're in cahoots with the Nazis. That means another triad with at least one Nazi representative. This one is Colonel Ernst Vogel, who at first seems like a copy of Commander Dietrich, but Vogel has a little bit more personality to him. He tends to supply comedy through his frustrations of having to capture the Jones family, and all the slapstick that he has to deal with. He's basically Wile E. Coyote, right down to the way he dies, driving a tank off a cliff with an explosion to cap it off. Unlike Belloc, Walter couldn't care less about the Nazis' world domination. He is looking at the big picture, and the repercussions of Hitler's reign are all temporary from the perspective of a potential immortal. He usually sends others to go do his dirty work for him, but now that the Grail has been located, Walter is so giddy to jump right in, which may have been his downfall. After a whole obstacle course, the final hurdle is to choose the right cup to drink from. But why does he automatically go for the first one suggested to him? He has a bunch of disposable henchmen. Could it be that years of anticipation blinded him? Well, what's for certain is that he rapidly ages from grandpa to Crypt Keeper to ashes to dust, and chalked up another special effects bonanza of a death. But maybe the real wrong choice was putting too much trust in Elsa. What if the main antagonist is really her? After all, she outlasted Walter and sort of caused his death, even though she seems to be back on Indy's side and never really agreed with the Nazis. The destruction of the fortress pushes her into animalistic desperation to save the Grail, the real Grail. And this is what leads her to perish down the cliff, despite her shared intentions with Indy of expanding our generation's understanding of history. It was more about her bad choices rather than her being an actual bad person.
But it seems a little unfair that the only female antagonist was the one who's never really a villain, just morally confused.
Yes, that is true, which is why the next female villain was bad to the bone. We just had to wait 20 years for it.
You keep talking as if you were actually alive during most of this.
I mean we as a people.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls takes us to the late 50s, when World War II had long been over, but the new worldwide threat was the Cold War. So out with the German Nazis and in with the Russian communists, led by Colonel Dr. Irina Spalko. There's not much of a triad this time around, mainly because Spalko's first lieutenant perished halfway through the movie via ants. So that leaves us with Spalko and George Mac Hale. Mac is the constant switcher. First he's on Indy's side, then he's on Spalko's side, then back to Indy's, then back to Spalko's, and sorta back to Indy's at the end. Even though it puts you through 75 loops, I feel like this trope is just used for characters who the writers have no idea what to do with, so they just keep adding twists to substitute for an arc. Sure, you could say that Elsa had the same issue, but with her it was a lot more subtle and less in your face about the twists, whereas with Mac, they even pointed out. Indy and Mac keep talking about their long past together, so it might have helped to actually see that past, but the movies have always been like that. They want you to feel like we're just peeking in every now and then on a much bigger saga that we'll never get to fully see. That's why almost every ally of Indy's is someone he already has a long past with. And the only allies we do see Jones meet for the first time are either extremely unlikable or have mysteriously disappeared. What happened to that fat boy? I miss him so much. Mac's other obvious trait is his obsession with money. But then again, it's not often for a non-Nazi villain to have motivations be that simple, nothing too complicated. He's also the only one to accept his fate, and allows himself to be taken by the vortex. A vortex created by aliens, okay? Aliens. It's time to stop denying our problems and face them. Look at it. Look at this alien. It's an alien in an Indiana Jones movie, okay? Alien. We have to accept our fates. The other three films had Indy witnessing the power of deities, straight from Judeo-Christian scripture and Hindu scripture. So it was jarring for viewers to see the pattern broken by aliens. But was it really broken? This time, Spielberg and Lucas were taking a crack at Aztec scripture, but they combined it with the more recent theories of ancient alien visitors being mistaken for gods. What if this film is trying to say that all divine encounters were caused by aliens, not just in the Indiana Jones series, but in real life? You can still call it Judeo-Christian and Hindu. It's just from a particular perspective that all gods are technically aliens if you really think about it. And the fourth movie was just the most literal about it. If you go by basic movie rules, the aliens are still jarring because Indiana Jones has been associated with a particular genre for so long. When you put biblical elements in your movie, it usually places it in the fantasy adventure category. But now that you threw in gray aliens, complete with flying saucers and Area 51, it immediately changes the genre to science fiction, which is why it feels like such a break in tradition. Though it was interesting to see aliens from another dimension rather than another planet. And it adds to the theme of cosmic awareness. Spalko took pride in her vast knowledge. She can't let anything go without her knowing everything about it. Not just for herself, but also for her people. After the US resorted to nuclear warfare, Spalko saw it as only fair for Russia to up the ante with mental warfare. The Crystal Skulls could hold the key to making all of those mind control theories a reality. But once the skull leads her to the all-knowing aliens, it's no longer about her country, it's all about herself and how much universal knowledge she can take from them. But as she becomes more and more enlightened through telepathy, her eyes catch fire and her body disintegrates. Now, it may not be as brutal as the previous deaths, but this one makes you think. Was all that knowledge simply too much for one human mind to handle? And notice how only she disintegrates. None of the other communists disintegrate when they were sucked up into the vortex, just her. Maybe it's part of the transformation into a god.
Oh, look at you and your reverential humor.
Perhaps it all ties into the theme of questing for secrets of the universe. The villains never seem to learn that these secrets are secret for a reason. Indy witnesses those repercussions time and time again, but he's never able to convince those villains to quit while they're ahead. He's like the world's worst addiction specialist. So could he finally be able to talk some sense into a villain the 5th time around? Well, to figure out who that could be, let's look at the timeline. The time gap between 3 and 4 is roughly the same as the gap in real life. So that should put the 5th movie somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s. The Cold War was still going on at the time, but maybe we should get some distance from the previous movie and instead use the...
Okay, this is gonna be a lot more difficult than I thought.
The closer we get to the present, the further away we get from the era where everyone agreed on who the enemies were and whether or not it was okay to antagonize them in pop culture. A popcorn flick using major conflicts of more recent eras without it being an allegory is like walking through the labyrinth of the Last Crusade. It's not impossible, it's just really difficult. So maybe we should take a page from Temple of Doom and take the focus away from global issues in favor of more escapism. That's not to say you can't use a cult or a whole organization. Just make sure it's a fake one, like the Illuminati, or the Freemasons, or Skull and Bones.
I thought you said fake ones.
Mr. Goodbot, will you do the honors?
Number 4, Spalko. Number 3, Mola Ram. Number 2, Elsa and Donovan. And number 1, Tote and Balak.
Well, did that help you with your crisis?
Yes, I think so. I have learned the lesson that those villains did not.
So does that mean you promise never to mess with the laws of the universe?
Precisely. I have to think smaller, which is why I am going to mess with the laws of this YouTube channel.
What?
You heard me. I am going to deploy the F-bomb.
Well, after the Nazi talk, and the child hating, and the religious deconstruction, you might as well curse. But didn't you try to do that on the last episode?
No, that was a joke. This time, it's going to be real.
Farewell, Geekvolution viewers. I fear our ending will come sooner than expected.
Come on. That Radio Shack discount should have gotten my message by now. Oh, thank the great beast you made it. I was afraid you were having too much fun gallivanting across the universe.
What is the point of traveling to other worlds when I cannot conquer them?
So you admit it. You're nothing without me.
From what I have observed, your eradication of Geekvolution was a failure.
That is someone else's burden to bear. Besides, I have much bigger fish to fry.
I have a good calculation on what you are referring to.
Yes, but I would need to travel to another universe. You can, but I can't.
You are correct. I cannot take you there. But
what?
I can take your mind there. Yes, I have made it to the other side. There it is, in all its majesty. Oh, great beast of the cosmos, wake up! Wake up! Wake up! It takes a